A tiny German shepherd puppy, shivering, muddy, and terrified, ran straight through the front doors as if escaping a nightmare. He didn't bark. He didn't bite. He simply stopped in the middle of the room and raised his tiny paws, begging for help. Officers froze. No tag, no collar, no owner chasing after him. But when Officer Lena knelt down to comfort him, the puppy did something that sent chills through the entire station. He kept pointing toward the door, whining desperately as if trying to speak. No one could have imagined what he was trying to tell them. And when they followed him, what they discovered made every single officer cry. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The morning had started like any other. Quiet, slow, the kind of shift where officers sipped coffee and shuffled paperwork more than anything else. Sunlight filtered lazily through the station windows, warming the floors and casting long shadows across the desks. Officer Lena Hayes, midway through a stack of reports, stretched her neck and sighed. It looked like another uneventful day, but everything changed in the span of 3 seconds. The station doors slammed open with a loud bang, startling everyone inside. Officers jerked their heads up. Pens dropped, coffee nearly spilled, because standing in the doorway was a tiny German shepherd puppy, not walking, not wandering, not exploring, running, frantic, breathless, terrified. His little paws skidded on the tile floor as he dashed inside, his chest rising and falling in desperate gasps. His fur was matted with mud, patches of dust clinging to him like he'd rolled through half the forest. The officers stared, confused, exchanging bewildered glances. "What on earth?" one muttered. Before anyone could react, the puppy rushed straight into the center of the room, stopped abruptly, and rose onto his hind legs. His front paws lifted into the air, trembling as he pressed them together, almost like he was begging. The room fell silent. Officer Lena froze mid-step, her eyes widening. Something wasn't right. This wasn't playful puppy behavior. This was fear, desperation, pleading. The little dog looked around the room, eyes glassy with panic, then locked onto Lena. He whimpered, a tiny, broken sound that pierced straight through her chest. Officers in the back chuckled softly, thinking it was cute. But Lena didn't smile, not even for a second. She slowly set down her folder and crouched to the puppy's level. The moment she lowered herself, the puppy stumbled toward her, still on shaky legs, still begging with those raised paws. "Hey, buddy," she whispered. "What's wrong? What happened to you?" He didn't bark. He didn't lick her hand. He didn't wag his tail. Instead, he kept pointing, again and again, toward the wide-open station door, whining urgently, as if trying to drag someone's attention outside. Lena's heartbeat quickened. This wasn't a lost puppy. This was a cry for help, and Lena had a sinking feeling. Whatever he wanted them to see out there wasn't going to be simple. It was going to change everything. Lena's instincts were screaming now, louder than any training manual, louder than the puzzled murmurs coming from the officers behind her. She inched closer, lowering herself slowly so she wouldn't startle the tiny creature. The puppy's trembling only intensified, his paws still lifted, as if he didn't know how else to communicate his fear. "It's okay," she whispered gently. "You're safe here." But safety wasn't what the puppy wanted. His wide, fearful eyes flicked again toward the open door. His little body leaned in that direction, as though every part of him was pulling, pleading, urging her to follow him outside. Lena noticed it then, his limp. It was faint, almost easy to miss, but when he shifted his weight, She saw the tiny wince ripple across his body. His back paw was scraped raw, a thin trail of dried blood crusted around the fur. Her chest tightened. This puppy had run a long, painful distance, and he had run with purpose. "Guys, look at his leg," she said without turning around. Officer Ramirez walked closer, his boots echoing across the tiles. "Probably just got into a fight with a raccoon," he joked lightly. "Puppies do dumb things." But Lena shook her head. "No, this is different. Look at his eyes." She gently held out her hand, palm open. The puppy hesitated, then slowly placed one trembling paw onto her fingers. His claws barely grazed her skin, but the way he clung to her told her everything she needed to know. He wasn't seeking comfort. He was seeking help. And he was running out of time. Lena glanced up at the other officers. "Something happened out there. I think he's trying to show us." The puppy whined again, urgent, heartbreaking. He tugged at her sleeve with his mouth, then looked sharply toward the door, giving a tiny, desperate bark. It was the first sound he'd made since entering. "Lena." "He looks terrified," one of the rookies murmured. "I know," she replied softly. She lifted the puppy carefully, and for the first time they saw the dirt and leaves tangled in his fur. He smelled of cold air, forest soil, and fear. Something, or someone, was out there, waiting, needing help. Lena stood, heart pounding. "All right," she said firmly. "We're going with him." The puppy's ears perked. His tiny tail lifted once, and in that moment, Lena knew. This little dog wasn't lost. He was a messenger. The moment Lena stepped toward the door, the puppy squirmed in her arms, eager, almost frantic, to be put down. She gently lowered him to the ground, and the instant his paws touched the tile, he bolted forward. Not aimlessly, not confused, with purpose. He raced through the open doorway, pausing only long enough to turn back and make sure the officers were following. His sharp, anxious whine echoed down the steps. "Move!" Lena ordered, her voice slicing through the morning calm. The team hurried after the puppy, their boots pounding against the pavement. The sun was higher now, warming the station's brick walls, but the air around the puppy felt cold, tight with urgency. He didn't slow. He didn't stumble. Even with his injured paw, he pushed forward like something far more important than his pain was pulling him. He darted across the station lot toward the tree line behind the building, a thick patch of woods officers rarely paid attention to. Birds scattered as he burst through the underbrush. "Is he going into the forest?" Officer Ramirez asked, breathless, as he jogged behind Lena. "Looks like it," she replied, tightening her grip on her radio. "Stay alert. Something's wrong." The puppy paused just inside the shade of the trees, looking back with pleading eyes. His chest heaved as he waited, tail lowered but wagging anxiously, urging them deeper. "Okay, buddy," Lena whispered. "Lead the way." He spun and darted forward again. Branches snapped beneath the officers' boots as they entered the woods, shadows swallowing them whole. Sunlight flickered between the leaves, creating shifting patterns across the forest floor. The puppy weaved expertly between roots and fallen branches, never once looking uncertain. "This little guy knows exactly where he's going," one officer muttered. But Lena already knew that. Her instincts hadn't been wrong this morning, and they weren't wrong now. The air felt heavy, too still, too expectant. Then she noticed something else, small paw prints, fresh ones, leading the same direction the puppy was going. But beside those prints, something else, long, shallow drag marks disturbing the dirt. Her stomach dropped. "Guys," she called out, voice tightening. "Keep your eyes open." The puppy let out another whine up ahead, sharper now, urgent. He stopped, ears perked, tail stiff, and for the first time since leaving the station, Lena felt it fully. Whatever he was leading them to, it was close. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became. The usual forest sounds, rustling leaves, chirping birds, distant traffic, faded into an eerie stillness. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Lena slowed her pace, her senses sharpening. Every instinct told her they were getting close to something they weren't prepared for. The puppy stopped at the edge of a small clearing, his tiny chest heaving as he stared ahead with wide, fearful eyes. His ears flattened. A soft whimper escaped him, the kind that cut straight through the human heart. "What is this place?" Ramirez murmured, scanning the area. The clearing was oddly untouched. No animals, no movement, just a ring of tall trees, leaning inward as if guarding a secret. The air felt colder here, heavy with a tension that made the hair on Lena's arms rise. The puppy took a few hesitant steps forward, then glanced back at her, eyes pleading. "Okay," Lena whispered, stepping beside him. "Show me." She crouched to examine the ground. That's when she saw them. Footprints, small ones, like a child's, half smudged into the dirt. Some sharp and clear, others uneven as though someone had stumbled. Right beside them were the same drag marks she had noticed earlier. They snaked deeper into the woods, disappearing into a narrow path between two thick trees. Her throat tightened. "Guys, these aren't animal tracks. Someone was dragging something. Or someone." The rookie officer swallowed hard. Ramirez's face turned pale. The forest suddenly felt suffocating. The puppy barked, a single sharp cry, and ran a few steps down the narrow path before stopping again, trembling violently. Lena followed slowly, each step sinking into soft earth. She could feel her heartbeat thundering in her chest, louder than the silence around them. The air grew colder still, the temperature dropping as though they'd crossed into a part of the forest untouched by sunlight. A soft rustle broke the silence. The officers froze, hands instinctively reaching toward their gear. The puppy lowered himself, ears pinned back, tiny body pressed close to the ground. "Something's up ahead," Lena whispered, barely breathing the words. Another rustle. A faint, fragile sound, a whimper, too human to ignore. Lena's pulse spiked as the puppy bolted forward again, this time with desperation. "Go, go!" she ordered, sprinting behind him. The forest around them blurred, branches clawing at their uniforms. But the puppy didn't slow, because whatever lay at the end of that path was the reason he had run to the station in the first place. The narrow forest path ended abruptly at a cluster of fallen branches, as though a recent storm had forced the trees to collapse into each other. The puppy squeezed through an opening, whimpering urgently, his tiny frame shaking with emotion. Lena dropped to her knees and pushed the branches aside. The moment her hand brushed against something soft, she froze. Fabric, small, torn, faded pink. Her heart stuttered. She gently pulled the piece free, revealing a child's shirt sleeve, ripped at the seams, smeared with dirt, and horrifyingly tiny. "Oh, God," she whispered. The puppy scrambled toward her, nudging the fabric with his nose and crying softly. His whines echoed through the forest, raw with fear and desperation, as if he'd been trying to show this to someone for hours. Ramirez stepped closer, his breath catching. That's a kid's." Lena nodded, swallowing hard as she examined it. The sleeve was decorated with little white stars and a faint cartoon unicorn, exactly the kind of shirt a young girl would wear. She held it, gingerly, her hands trembling. "This belongs to a child," she said, her voice cracking. "A little girl." The officers exchanged alarmed looks. Behind her, the puppy suddenly turned and darted deeper into the thicket, barking frantically. Each bark was sharper, more desperate than the last. "He wants us to follow," the rookie shouted. Lena rushed after the puppy, heart pounding. The forest seemed to close in around them, shadows stretching long and thin as the morning sun struggled to reach through the canopy. The deeper they went, the stronger the sense of dread became. Then they found it. A small patch of ground where the dirt was disturbed, fresh, uneven, and surrounded by tiny footprints. In the center, half buried, was a little shoe, light blue, Velcro straps, a cartoon butterfly sticker peeling from the side, the same size as the sleeve. Lena felt her throat tighten painfully. "Whoever this child is," she whispered, "she didn't leave on her own." The puppy circled the spot, crying and pawing at the dirt as if begging them to understand. His tail was tucked between his legs, his whole body shaking. He pressed his head against the shoe, letting out a soft, broken sound that made Lena's chest ache. This wasn't just a trail. This was a plea for help. And if the puppy had come alone, then the child he was trying to save was somewhere out here, hurt, scared, and running out of time. Lena rose from the patch of disturbed dirt, her pulse quickening. The torn sleeve, the tiny shoe, the drag marks, everything pointed to one terrifying truth. A child was out here, alone, injured, and time was slipping fast. "Ramirez, call for backup," she ordered, voice steady but strained. "I want a full search team, K9 units, drones, everything." He nodded and stepped aside, already speaking urgently into his radio. The puppy didn't wait. He bolted forward again, his little legs carrying him deeper into the woods with surprising speed, guided by instinct, fear, and something far stronger. Loyalty. "Stay with him," Lena shouted, sprinting behind the puppy. The forest thickened as they moved forward, branches arched overhead like skeletal arms, filtering the sunlight into faint golden streaks. Damp leaves crunched underfoot. The air smelled of moss, earth, and something else. Something metallic. The puppy slowed near a fallen log, sniffing intensely. His whines grew sharper. He scratched at the ground, then ran ahead, stopping once more to look back at the officers, begging them to hurry. "He's tracking someone," the rookie said, breathless. "He knows exactly where to go." Lena saw it too, the way the puppy moved with certainty. He wasn't guessing. He wasn't wandering. He was following a trail he had memorized with his tiny heart. And that trail was ending somewhere terrifying. As they pushed through a thick cluster of bushes, Lena spotted something half-hidden in the brush. She knelt and brushed, aside the leaves, a hairband, purple, with tiny glittery hearts. Her stomach twisted painfully. "Another child item," she murmured. "This girl must have lost pieces of her clothing as she tried to crawl or move." Ramirez rejoined them. "Backup is 10 minutes out." Lena exhaled shakily. "We don't have 10 minutes." The puppy barked again, short, frantic, commanding. Then he ran down a narrow slope, dirt sliding beneath his paws. Lena followed, careful but urgent. The path was steeper here, the forest darker. The air felt colder. Halfway down the slope, she saw the marks, deep grooves in the soil. Something, or someone, had been dragged. Her chest tightened. "She was pulled down here," Lena whispered. The puppy reached the bottom of the slope and stopped abruptly, tail stiff, body rigid. He inhaled sharply, ears perked, then looked up at Lena with eyes full of pleading urgency. This was it. They were close. So close that Lena felt the dread settle in her bones, and whatever they found next would change everything. The puppy froze at the bottom of the slope, his tiny frame trembling as he stared toward a cluster of bushes ahead. He didn't bark this time. He didn't whine. He simply stood still, ears forward, body stiff, like he was afraid of what they were about to see. Lena's breath hitched. She stepped closer, pushing aside the branches with a trembling hand. And then she saw her. A little girl, no older than 5. Curled beside a fallen tree trunk, her tiny arms wrapped around herself as if trying to stay warm. Her face was pale, streaked with dirt and dried tears. Her hair was tangled with leaves. One shoe was missing, the same shoe Lena had found earlier. "Oh, my God," she whispered, knees buckling as she crouched beside the child. The puppy let out a heart-shattering cry and ran straight to the girl, pressing his tiny head against her arm, licking her fingers, nudging her gently as if begging her to wake. The girl didn't respond. "Is she breathing?" Ramirez asked, voice shaking. Lena placed trembling fingers under the girl's chin, searching for movement. For a heartbeat, she felt nothing. Then, a faint, shallow rise of her chest. "She's alive," Lena said, relief crashing into her like a wave. "But she's cold, weak. She's been out here all night." The puppy whined louder, circling the girl, pawing at her jacket like he was trying to cover her with the little warmth he had. "You stayed with her," Lena whispered, her eyes softening. "You didn't leave her alone, did you?" The puppy curled beside the girl, nose pressed to her cheek, trembling from exhaustion, but refusing to step away. Lena gently lifted the girl, cradling her against her chest. The child's head fell limply on her shoulder, her body freezing cold, her breathing dangerously shallow. "Call EMS now!" she shouted. Ramirez already had his radio out. "We found her! Female child, unconscious, but alive. Severe hypothermia. Send medics to the south clearing immediately." The forest erupted with distant movement as backup teams began rushing toward them. The puppy, despite shaking violently, followed every step Lena took, refusing to leave the girl's side even for a moment. "Easy, buddy," Lena whispered as the little dog pressed his body against her leg. "We're getting her help." But as she carried the girl through the woods, one thought haunted her. If the puppy hadn't run into the station when he did, they would never have found the child in time, and she might not have been alive at all. The ambulance doors slammed shut with a metallic thud, and within seconds the siren wailed through the trees. Lena watched as the flashing lights disappeared down the dirt road, carrying the unconscious child toward the hospital. Her arms felt strangely empty without the girl's tiny weight, but her heart was heavier than ever. Beside her the puppy trembled uncontrollably. Mud clung to his paws, leaves tangled in his fur, but he didn't seem to care. His eyes stayed fixed on the direction the ambulance had gone, as if willing himself to chase after it. "You're coming too," Lena whispered. She scooped him gently into her arms, and this time he didn't resist. He pressed his head against her chest, finally letting the exhaustion in his tiny body show. The hospital lobby was a blur of rushing nurses, echoing announcements, and the sharp smell of antiseptic. But in Lena's arms, the puppy stayed silent, alert, waiting, listening for any sign of the little girl he had fought so hard to save. A doctor approached them minutes later, wiping sweat from his brow. "She's in critical condition, hypothermia, dehydration, and shock. She must have been out there for many hours." His voice softened as he glanced at the puppy. "But whoever stayed with her kept her alive." Lena tightened her hold on the trembling dog. "He did. He stayed with her all night." The doctor nodded slowly, almost in disbelief. "That little dog bought her the time she needed. Through the glass window, they could see the child lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by wires and blankets. Her breathing was shallow but steady. Nurses worked quietly, warming her body, monitoring her vitals. The puppy whimpered and reached his paw toward the window. Lena knelt so he could see better. "That's right, buddy. She's right there." He pressed his nose to the glass, letting out a soft, heartbreaking cry. His reflection stared back at him, muddy, tired, but filled with a loyalty far too deep for his tiny age. A nurse approached, smiling gently. "Is he the one who found her?" "Found her, and refused to leave her," Lena replied. The nurse's expression softened even more. "Then he can stay with her. She might recognize him when she wakes up. It could help." Lena's breath hitched. "Thank you." She carried the puppy into the recovery room. The moment she set him down, he climbed carefully onto the chair beside the girl's bed, curling up as close as he could without touching the wires. And for the first time since they found her, his trembling stopped. He watched over her, silent, loyal, unmoving, as if guarding the most precious thing in the world. Hours passed, marked only by the soft beeping of monitors and the slow rise and fall of the little girl's chest. The puppy never moved from his spot beside the bed, not even when nurses came in to adjust equipment. He watched every hand, every motion, making sure no one hurt her. His loyalty was fierce, unshaken, almost impossible to believe from such a tiny creature. Then a sudden commotion stirred outside the room, rushed footsteps, choked sobs, hurried voices. The girl's parents had arrived. A distraught woman burst through the door first, her face streaked with tears, her hands trembling as she stumbled toward the bed. "My baby," she cried, her voice breaking as she touched her daughter's cold cheek. Her husband followed, eyes swollen, knees nearly giving out as he reached for his child's hand. We thought we lost her," he whispered. The couple clung to their daughter, crying softly, whispering prayers and gratitude. The puppy sat upright, watching them intently, ears perked as if trying to understand who these two strangers were. When the mother leaned too close, he even let out a tiny, protective growl. Lena gently stroked his back. "Easy, buddy. They're her parents." The mother wiped her tears and finally noticed him. This puppy stayed with her?" Lena nodded. "He did more than that. He led us straight to her. We would have never found her in time without him." The parents stared at the little dog, their eyes filling with awe and disbelief. "But is he her puppy?" the father asked. That question hung in the air for a moment. "No," Lena said softly. "He's a stray. When we first found him, he had no collar, no ID, no tag. He must have found your daughter on his own." The mother gasped, placing a hand over her mouth. "He stayed with her? All night?" "Yes," Lena replied. "He kept her warm. He didn't leave her side. And when he realized she couldn't move anymore, he ran miles to find us." Silence filled the room, a different kind of silence this time. Not fear, not tension, awe. The father knelt beside the puppy, tears rolling down his cheeks. Slowly he reached out his hand. The puppy hesitated, then sniffed it gently. And for the first time since entering the station that morning, he wagged his tail, just once, small and soft. "Thank you," the father whispered, voice shaking. "You saved our little girl." The puppy bowed his head, as if he understood every word. The hospital room had grown quiet as night settled in, soft lights illuminating the little girl's bed. The puppy remained curled at her side, his tiny chest rising and falling with slow, exhausted breaths. Lena sat in a chair nearby, watching over both of them, unable to shake the image of the puppy racing through the station doors, desperate, determined, pleading. Then, gently, softly, a small sound broke the silence, a fragile, breathy whisper. "Mom?" The girl's eyelids fluttered open, her gaze hazy, confused. Her mother gasped, covering her mouth as tears spilled down her cheeks. "Baby, you're awake! Oh, thank God, you're awake!" The little girl blinked slowly, taking in her surroundings, the wires, the blankets, her parents' tear-streaked faces hovering over her. Her father leaned down, sobbing with relief. "We're right here, sweetheart. You're safe now." But the child's eyes drifted away from them, searching the room with slow, weak movements, until they landed on the small, furry figure beside her. The puppy. Her lips trembled. "My puppy," she whispered. The tiny dog lifted his head, ears perked, and let out the softest whine, almost like he was answering her call. He scooted closer, placing one tiny paw gently on her arm. A nurse stepped forward nervously. "Careful, don't let him pull her IV." But the girl smiled weakly and whispered, "He saved me." Her parents cried harder. Lena smiled through the lump in her throat. "Yes, sweetheart, he did." The girl lifted a trembling hand and rested it on the puppy's head. He pressed into her touch, tail wagging slowly, relief washing through his small body as though he'd been holding on just to see this moment. Then the father cleared his throat, his voice thick with emotion. "Officer, what happens to the puppy now?" Lena looked at the little dog, mud dried on his coat, exhaustion in his eyes, yet still refusing to move from the girl's side. "He's a stray," she said softly. "No owner ever came forward." The mother exchanged a look with her husband, one filled with gratitude, warmth, and unspoken understanding. She knelt beside the puppy, stroking his small frame. "He saved our daughter's life," she whispered. "He shouldn't ever be alone again." Lena felt tears sting her eyes as the mother gently lifted the puppy and placed him onto the girl's chest, where he curled up instantly. "We'd like to adopt him," the father said, voice trembling. "He belongs with her now." The girl smiled, a small, fragile smile filled with pure love, and the puppy nuzzled closer, letting out a soft sigh, as if he finally knew he was home.